The benefit performance is for something new at the St. Anthony Hospital, which isn't a part of the hospital itself. The fundraiser is for the Oklahoma Cardiovascular Institute. The institution's board members are building a dream for the state of Oklahoma, one of medical advancement against the nation's #1 cause of death, heart disease. They're constructing a center for research and education, all thanks to a lending hand from world-famous tenor Luciano Pavarotti. The performer will be donating several $100,000 to this much-needed facility.
This is an urgent thing. It's an endemic, and the Institute is set up to aid with research and education for all the medical people in Oklahoma. This will, of course, result in improved patient care, and we hope a decrease in death and morbidity.
The center looks almost finished from the outside, but on the inside there's quite a bit of work to be done. The construction should be completed in time for the doors to open March 1st. Sherry Sellers, Action 4 at the Oklahoma Cardiovascular Institute.
As this bill becomes law, America ends a period of decline in her vast and world-famous transportation system.
The bill Reagan speaks of, the gas tax, should create 330,000 jobs by putting people to work repairing roads. But the truckers, most of them, don't see the good in the gas tax. It's the first time in 23 years the gas tax has been raised, and many truckers say it could put them out of business. There's even talk among the truckers of a strike.
They're thinking about a nationwide shutdown on February the 1st. And of course, we would not like to see this. And it's really a sign of the times or whatever answer you want to have, but to get Washington's attention, it seems like sometimes drastic measures have to be taken.
The truckers say a strike would only be effective if all of them got together on it. One trucker told Action 4 tonight, if there is a strike, it won't last long because the nation depends so heavily on trucking.
I have my payments, you have yours, and you're not going to let me hurt you, regardless of what the situation is. Since we're not union, and I don't want to be union, you are not going to jeopardize your family and food and your roof for my principles. I mean, and that's how it goes. It's going to have to be all of us involved in it.
Aside from the 5-cent a gallon increase, the bill also raises sales tax on trucks, tires, and parts. Dan Slocum, Action 4.
I hope to inform them on programs that are available to cancer patients and to the families of cancer patients, and to just the general knowledge and education, that there is a lot more available to help families than people realize.
Throughout the day, the lines at the Oklahoma Arts Center got longer and longer. Almost 5,000 people worked their way through the crowd to get a peek at Van Gogh, Monet, Renoir, Degas, and the other artists featured in the Phillips collection.
We're not surprised necessarily, but I'm terribly delighted with the crowds. It means that Oklahoma City has accepted the cultural advantages that we have to offer, and we're just delighted with the crowds, with the people coming out.
For the onlookers, seeing the Phillips collection was worth having to peer over all the people.
I think it's magnificent, you know, to see these paintings. It's just unbelievable.
I thought that lots of people would procrastinate just like I have, and no, it doesn't surprise me.
It's worth the wait and worth the effort to elbow your way in to see great paintings like this. It's really beautiful.
The Impressionism and Modern Vision exhibit brought more than $350,000 to the Oklahoma Arts Center. The 75 painting Phillips collection will return to Washington this week. Debbie Mash, Action 4 at the Oklahoma Arts Center.
Okay.
And
because
so,
of its national impact.
Yeah. And the constitutional issue really has nothing to do with the amount. What the 10th Circuit said is any amount is too much. A defendant can't do whatever they do.
An order, the Supreme Court order would usually go. We're here today because the Supreme Court entered an order this morning which agreed to hear the Silkwood versus Kerr-McGee appeal on its merits. This is a victory for us in the sense that we will have all of our arguments and our positions set before the court for the court to determine, but it is by no means a final victory. The court, in accepting jurisdiction, has not really indicated which way it will decide the case.
I think it's a case about about a work-related claim of injury that's covered by the workers' compensation laws, and I think that's what it's all about, but I would not deny that it's received a tremendous amount of media attention and that others ascribe significance to it that I do not and never have.
Some courts have put a freeze on intake in the system. The court in Alabama, I think it was, discharged prisoners en masse. Just discharged them into the community and ordered the state to do that. So the courts have, and then ordering fines per day on the state for every day they do not comply. And that was the thing that Judge Bohannon threatened us with in a previous hearing where we were severely overcrowded and were not in compliance with his order. So he has a great range of options.
I think there are other projects involved in his capital recommendations that need to be looked at. I don't think there's anything really sacred about the idea of putting an additional $2 million into the University of Oklahoma Energy Center this year, or the $2 million into the agriculture building up at Oklahoma State University. I'm not sure that the $8 million that he's got projected to put into the Central State Griffin Memorial Hospital is an absolute necessity, which simply must be done this year. I think each and every one of those needs to be looked at, and they will be looked at with the idea in mind that until we can get control of our economic problems, with the downturn in the economy, we need to really take a close look at those things and perhaps put some of them off as long as we can, and that may mean that we won't fund them this year at all.
A lot of people would like to be able to forget what happened at Star Elementary School last January 19th, but the memory of that tragic Tuesday will forever be etched in the memories of people who saw their loved ones suffer when a water heater exploded. For some, the physical suffering lingers. For many, the financial suffering also continues. Relatives of the 37 children and adults killed or maimed by the ruptured water heater filed damage suits totaling more than $10 million against the Oklahoma City School District. However, a judge has ruled that the district can only be sued for a maximum of $300,000 for the accident. The ruling doesn't seem fair to Pat Murphy. Her daughter Christine was hurt during the explosion. Her doctor bills have already passed $19,000.
I think that it's wrong. Was what was awarded, it's going to, my medical bills already are so high that I can't possibly cover it.
If these people had been injured or killed in some other place other than the schoolhouse, there would be no limit for the recovery, and we don't think that it's constitutional for the school board to be able to come into these people and say, look, we're going to pay you $300,000 and you all have to divide it up, or we're going to let the court divide it up for you. These people ought to be totally and fully compensated for the injuries that they've received, and any law that would provide otherwise we feel is unconstitutional.
The judge's decision will most likely be appealed, but it's important to remember that his limitation on liability will not affect the lawsuits filed by the victims' parents against the manufacturer of the ruptured water heater. Scott Wallace, Action 4.
That's the only way I know how to operate the system is to be free and open. The reorganization, I as well as anyone else, but I went there this morning because that's where I was invited. Now, as far as the budget goes, all-purpose plan, and what alternatives would be to the movement of residents out of Whitaker. So, where is this training going to be provided? Develops and how many of those residents can be successfully dealt with in other probably deserve the attention of the legislature. But so far as the department is concerned, we have training programs going on.
Yesterday, it looked as though the price wars may have been on when Derby Refining Company announced they were lowering the price at which they would buy crude from producers in Oklahoma. The oil and gas industry is unique in that the buyers set the prices. Derby tried to bring the cost down, but no other companies followed suit, so Derby has decided to go back to the original cost. But the price at which refineries are willing to buy crude may be lowered soon anyway, but it will take a major company to make sure the rest of the industry does the same.
If one of the large purchasers went down the $2 a barrel that Derby tried to go down and then rescinded, I think most refiners would have followed within 1 or 2 days very quickly, because the economics of the business say we have to go down, but no small buyer can go down. It has to be a big one, because if the small buyer goes down, he's concerned that he will lose that source of domestic crude oil from him, while if a large buyer goes down, I think most others would follow.
But Jordan warns that even if the cost of crude goes down, the prices at the pump will not reflect it. The profit margin will still be too low for the major refineries to cut the prices any further. Kevin Ogle, Action 4.
Apparently we get two different sets of figures, one based on full-time equivalent and one on the number of people, but there's something in the range of 800 vacancies which have not been filled. The personal need, but we do not have any plans at this time to close either Taft or Boley. Now with Whitaker it's a different situation. If Whitaker is depopulated, then obviously we can't afford to keep 230 state employees there with nothing to do. So when we have completed the process at Whitaker, it'll be declared surplus, and hopefully another mission can be found for that facility, but it'll have to be with an agency other than the Department of Human Services.
The people had the right to say that there should be no limit on damages in a death case, and they did that when we formed our state in the Constitution. And they didn't say except when a heater explodes in a schoolroom, you see. So we think the Constitution is controlling, and the legislature simply cannot, although it often does, pass laws which seem to be politically expedient at the time that are contrary to the Constitution.
And what are your chances of overturning this?
I believe they're good.
Moore School Superintendent Barbara Courtney had some bad news for the district's teachers and support personnel. Despite cutbacks, the district was $875,000 in the hole. A slow economy had meant less revenue. Now Courtney wanted these people to vote for one of two options.
One, would you instruct me to lay off 130 employees February the 1st? Or each employee of the school district would take up to a 10% cut in salary for the remaining months of 1982-83.
The 82-83 fiscal year ends June 30th. The cut would be reimbursable if the district made it back into the black.
I kind of knew it was coming. I was a little upset about it. Of course, this is our jobs.
Who do you blame for what's happened?
Well, I don't think there's any blame anywhere. I think it's the state of the economy. The rest of the nation has been experiencing this, and it's just now coming into Oklahoma.
The faculties of each school met separately after the assembly. These teachers from Moore High were unhappy for two reasons. First, Courtney wanted their votes by 1 o'clock, and they wanted more time. Second, the teachers just didn't like the alternatives.
It would be hard for some of us that had lived on our salary alone to get by. Yet we realize that we don't want our co-workers to be without a job too. So either way, it bothers us to vote.
The Moore Association of Classroom Teachers contacted representatives from all the schools. Late in the morning, ACT President Donna Russell met with Superintendent Courtney. Around noon, Courtney decided the teachers didn't have to turn in their ballots. By the end of the day, it was unclear how the teachers would voice their opinions. But there's another side to what's going on. Some people say the district's budget problems are due more to administrative mismanagement than a slow Oklahoma economy.
This financial situation started about 2 years ago when they took around $1 million out of the general fund and applied it to salaries. They probably had the money that year, but salaries are an ongoing thing, and year after year, adding $1 million out of your general fund into your into teacher salaries will get you in trouble.
Whether it's administrative mismanagement or bad fortune isn't going to make much difference to these people. One way or the other, at least some of the employees of the Moore School District are going to lose. Bill Ross, Action 4 in Moore.
Upon arrival, we did find the subject appeared to be definitely DOA, and medical examiner and investigators were called to investigate. As of this time, his identity is not known, nor the motive for his death.
come in all shapes, sizes, and attires to have a chance at being named the toughest man in Oklahoma. And if that isn't enough glory for him, the winner gets $1,000 to boot and a try at being the toughest man in the nation. Tonight's competition in Oklahoma City is one of about 64 around the country. Each amateur is given the chance to be a real-life Rocky, to walk off the streets little known, only to come out of the ring a big winner. The purse for the national fight is $50,000, a sum not to be laughed at in these hard economical times. But money's not the only reason these guys jump into the ring.
Just like to test my skill against everybody else, I guess.
Because my two other buddies entered, that's why I did it.
Tonight's winner may get a chance to fight for the big 50 grand in front of his fellow Oklahomans. One of the 5 places being considered for the national competition is Oklahoma City. Sherry Sellers, Action 4 at the State Fairgrounds.
We had not intended that the program would be predicated on what happens here today. We knew full well that we'd be in competition with the football game and church and all. We're happy that the policemen will not be sitting in these seats here. They will be out in the community with the people. So we're not worried at all. We believe the program is going to be successful.
We will recommend to our committee that one of the actions we consider seriously this spring will be a possible litigation against the Social Security Administration and the medical evaluation unit here, where we're having mentally ill people wholesalely terminated from the disability insurance rolls without what I consider adequate examination as to their emotional and mental ability to hold gainful employment. I believe that this is an activity, and I believe this is an area where a litigation in federal court would have a very real possibility of restoring to the disability rolls large numbers of the mentally and emotionally ill people in Oklahoma.
Oklahoma City firefighters wasted little time putting out a 2-alarm blaze at the Wilshire West apartment complex. The fire started in a downstairs apartment bedroom and was confined to the lower level of the building. 3 other units did suffer a fair amount of smoke and water damage. All residents were at home when the fire started, but everyone was able to get out unharmed. Child's play is responsible for the blaze that spread in a matter of minutes.
Well, there was a 4-year-old child in the bedroom of the home, and apparently by his own admission was playing with a cigarette lighter on or near the bed in his bedroom. Once the fire started, it was very near the return air vent on the heating and air conditioning system, and apparently the fire got into the ductwork and was actually coming out of the ductwork at different parts of the apartment, which of course helped to accelerate the fire and speed the burn, and that's one of the reasons that we had fire coming out the windows when we arrived.
A smoke detector and alert neighbors can take credit for getting one resident to safety.
And when I opened the door, the smoke kicked me back, and I almost strangled. And then I closed the door, and I came and looked out the window. Dougie was downstairs hollering, "Miss Brown, go to your balcony, go to your balcony." And that's when I went out the balcony, and there was the guy down on the level. He said, "Jump, I'll catch you."
Authorities estimate the damage to the building and contents at $25,000. With the exception of one apartment, residents will be able to stay in the units tonight if they don't mind the smell of smoke for a while. Ed Stewart, Action 4, Northwest Oklahoma City.
Late April, although some of them will. We think that a plant of this size with a second shift returning would generate jobs probably for 1,000, 1,200 or so secondary and tertiary workers at other establishments such as suppliers, subcontractors, transportation industry, things of this sort. So their payroll, combined with the payroll of the General Motors second shift, might stimulate the economy to the tune of $80 to $100 million in a calendar year.
Mr. Fantastic, Orion!
Well, it's always special. We like to do things like that. I mean, it's always, if you can be of help to somebody, we like to do that. Yeah, I love children. I've got a kid myself. I got a boy that's 12 years old. Anybody, you got to love kids, you know.
Yes, all I know, as the music sparks, like sparkling fire, you're gonna have your fun. Let me sing, but my favorite part, give your heart to anyone, and don't forget to take you home, and it's nothing wrong with me. Yeah, God, save the last dance for me. Baby, don't you know I love you so?
Of course, this is a month-to-month estimate, and Christmas was a good month, and we're anticipating, we're hopeful that the months continue to be better, but we won't know, and I'm not going to make a guess, because once I make a guess, it's wrong. Well, it's an indication we don't know what we're talking about, and that's kind of where we all are. No one really knows. No one really knows. It's all an educated estimate.
Everything we can
and utility bills increase and the need arises. People recognize the need that the elderly and fixed income people are having and want to do something, that it will be an excellent opportunity for them to help.
I think Frederick's bad enough, and to get a bunch of prisoners here, I just don't feel like it'd be safe. As safe as it really is now.
I think it'd be good for Frederick. We come from a small town in Illinois where they put a minimum security. I guess you would call it, there they call them farms, state farms, and boosted the town. Was really, really good for them.
The average trucker today is 5 months behind on his truck payments. There's many driver out here that has not been home for 3, 4, 5 months because he knows if he goes home they're going to repossess his truck. He just keeps